Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So let's wait 2 more minutes until we are 9. Well, 1 minute until we're 9 sharp.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Hola. Hello. So, okay, it's 9 sharp. So let's get started. Let me close this one. Let me close this one. Let me close this one for now. And just let me open my laptop so I can see the 2 monitors at the same time. There you go. Perfect. So welcome to the 3rd day of the front-end development module. We're going to start speaking about JavaScript. And these are the topics that we are going to cover between today, tomorrow, and if something is missing, we have a little bit of a backup on Friday. There is a shorter lecture because you know the reviews and everything, but I think that we can cover 3 topics, more than 3 topics today. And if anything is actually missing for tomorrow, we have Friday as a backup. So, okay, this is the tables of contents. So what are we going to cover? First, an introduction about JavaScript. So you start losing their fears that it's a cumbersome language. Well, it is, but you will see the benefits. And most importantly, you will see that it's not that hard. And to be honest, it's easier to learn than Java. Then we're going to learn how to connect the files, just like we did with the CSS. There's multiple ways to add JavaScript to a web page, and some better than others. We're going to see what are the recommendations. Then we're going to start to learn how to make real applications, because we are going to start controlling the HTML. So now we are going to start doing the buttons or adding elements on the screen by using pure JavaScript and so on and so forth. That's connected to the event handler. Finally, we're going to start learning a little bit about web storage. So how to make our information storing for data inside the browser. So we don't need, for small cases, we don't need to have a backend solution. And finally, the most important one, how to fetch data. So let's get started. Fetch data means connecting to a server to request information. So let's get started.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Eduardo. Could you please minimize the sidebar of the participant?
You can see that?
The final video is in the way when we are watching.
Yeah,
I
didn't know that it was recorded on the screen. I really thought that literally Zoom only recorded the desktop, not the overlay of Zoom. So yeah, thank you so much for that detail. And yes, this kind of stuff, always tell me without any issues. So I think it's better now, right? Yes?
Not yet.
What are you seeing? I think that, let me see. For some reason.
It depends. I mean, it depends on what you see. I mean, what you see is what you're going to record.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's in the recording settings, I think. You can choose to have only the speaker video or everyone.
Okay, in recording. Okay,
just for recording, for later, not for now. I mean, if you minimize it or not, we're not going to see it now, but for recording, it's going to affect it.
Oh, okay. So, okay, I will set up the stuff for the next lesson. Okay, sorry about that. No worries. So let me share the screen one more time. Share the screen, desktop number 1. And there you go. So yeah, I will try to check it out for the next one. Don't worry. So let's continue with the introduction. Basically, what is JavaScript? More important than what is all JavaScript, because you probably know it's a language. Let's speak about the advantages of JavaScript. So what is so important to learn nowadays? Runs in any web browser, does any modern computer, and to be honest, I should change this to it runs literally everywhere. So from your smartphones, laptops, desktop, tablets, even smart TVs. So basically any device that connects to the internet understands JavaScript, something that doesn't happen with Java. So having a platform where literally your language runs in every single device built in the modern times is a huge advantage for JavaScript developers over any other kind of developer, regardless if Java is faster, regardless if C# is faster, regardless if C++ or C is even faster. Nobody can beat JavaScript in device adoptions. Like every single device that connects to the internet runs JavaScript. Period. There is no exception at all in that regard. You can also start to run. You can also run JavaScript in the server by using a technology known as Node.js. I think Kevin teach you a little bit about that last week. We are not going to cover it, but we are going to mention a little bit more about that in the optional lecture. That one's a supercharged topic with a lot of nice information. Then, now you can even start making desktop applications even with a setup screen using Electron.js. These ones that are in blue are links, so you can research more about this. And a quick note, if you have installed Slack, the app version, that one is running in Electron, and Visual Studio Code, let me tell you something, Visual Studio Code is also a JavaScript application. It's literally built on top of Electron. So you can see that you can create super mega hyper powerful and useful software using plain JavaScript. And it can be used to create semi-native iPhone and Android applications using React Native and similar tools. So next week that we cover React, once you get comfortable with React, you can start learning on your own additional technologies, in this case React Native, and you can expand your portfolio from a front-end developer, from a web developer to a full mobile developer, increasing your value in the market immediately just by learning React. And then once you dominate React, just add a little layer of React Native that is quite similar. And again, we're going to cover that in optional technologies that, to be honest, that's the lecture that it should not be called optional at all, because any front-end developer needs to know about this stuff. But forget about that. And now let's go back to the mandatory lectures. How do we connect JavaScript files to an HTML file? Again, multiple methods, but only one is actually recommended. The one on the left is called Inline Scripting. It means that you can write JavaScript code inside your HTML page. And something that I have mentioned every single day is separation of concerns. So I want that my information is in one file, the HTML. I want my graphic design information in another file, the CSS. And I want all my coding logic in another file, a JavaScript file. So as you probably guessed, the inline scripting is only used for small demos. Bigger projects use the second method, that is importing a JavaScript file inside your web page. And it's very similar to the link tag that we use for CSS, but instead of using the link tag, now we use a new tag called script. And why don't we use a universal tag like import or link for both kind of files? Again, because people are weird, so get used to that. But again, the tag is a script, you put the source, and remember, you need to get comfortable with the relative paths. If you still struggle a little bit about that, you can Google relative versus absolute paths, and there is some nice articles about that. So you need to get super comfortable, because bigger projects will have folders inside folders, and sometimes you are calling a file inside a folder that goes 2 or 3 levels up and then needs to go to another entire different folder. So you need to get comfortable using the terminal and these kind of commands. So let's showcase an example of that. Let's open Visual Studio Code. and start making some examples. I will create a new folder. I will call this one lecture 3. Lecture 3, and drag it to the Visual Studio editor, and I will create a new file. So I want to create index.html. Let me make it bigger. There you go. HTML5. This will be lecture 3, and let's create a simple example. So h1 hello JS, and let's create an inline example script. And if everything goes well, alert hello world. I think that more browsers will block this one because it is basically a pop-up and it's super annoying. But let me try it. Otherwise, we're gonna add a quick button to. But no, yeah. As soon as I open the window, let me put it on the left. On the left. As soon as I open this web page, let me showcase the tab. You can see the title, lecture 3. As soon as it renders this name, the alert or this the alert is the command for a pop-up for this message windows runs. So as you can see, it's working. And instead of using this method, again, this is only for quick demos. The method that we're going to use during the entire course is to import a file. So how do we do that? We create a new file, but remember, be organized. Don't create the files in the same level as the HTML page. Create a folder. This time we can call it just GS. And it says this one, we can say script.js. Remember, this icon is automatically put by Visual Studio Code. I don't choose it. And inside this one, we can say, for example, alert hello to. And instead of and now we can import it, script source. Again, you press the dot slash and it will showcase my project folder. I enter the JavaScript folder and then script JS. And then I close the tag. Then I close the tag. There you go. And if I reload the page, hello to. So yeah, this is the one this is the file that is on the right. So yeah, this is the correct way to add JS files. There you go. This part is easy. Now let's start playing around with HTML and JavaScript. But before we start making that, yes, go ahead. You can make a question before we enter this one.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. You can import JavaScript at any way in your page, or because you import it on your body. I just wanted to ask if you can import it anywhere in your page.
Okay, that's an excellent question, and thank you so much for that one. Let me just show it right away. Let me put it, for example, in the head. In the head. And there you go. I will reload the page. And just to confirm that the file is loading, let me change it to number 3 and reload the page. Yeah, it's working. You can put it on the head or on the body. What is the difference and why is recommended to put it on the body? Remember that the head is the steps that are done before we showcase the page on the screen. If this file, this JavaScript file contains either the file is super heavy, like a 10 megabytes file, that I know that it's almost impossible to write that much line of code until you reach 10 megabytes. But imagine that it's a super big project. Or imagine that this script, instead of having a single message like this one, has a super complex equation or function or whatever, something that actually takes a lot of time to process. You will run into a small problem. Your web page will not appear on the screen until this file is either downloaded from the internet or the logic inside it is run. So that will make your web page super slow, because remember, we don't show the page to the user until these contents are processed. So that's why the recommendation is to put it literally in the bottom of the page. There is a new way that I just saw it maybe last week ago, that is defer, sorry. I can put it in the chat. Just give me 1 second. It's called JavaScript script tag defer. You can research a bit about that. That will allow you to put the JavaScript files again on the head. But because I literally just learned about that less than 1 week ago, and I haven't used it in the project, I cannot confirm how reliable it is. It's probably it is, but I cannot recommend something that I haven't used, because then you will run into problems. And when you tell me, oh, I have this problem, I cannot help you because I never run into that problem in my life yet. So that's why I cannot recommend it. I don't say that it's bad, but it's a super mega hyper optional. I hope that answers the question. So for now, yes, put it in the bottom, literally as the last tag. So no matter how many contents you have in the web page, always put it in the bottom. So I hope that answers the questions. And then I see another question from Raunisa. Go ahead.
Eduardo, my question is like, without this scripting source, anyways, it is printing the hello.js. So what is the use of it?
Okay, yeah, this was just a simple example. And the alert window is a simple message windows that you can use for creating interfaces. Let's showcase a nice example in the SDA platform. Log out, and for example, I press Eduardo at KTHSE. Well, in this one, I put the message directly in this one. But I think that when we create an account, if I put an invalid code thing and say, for example, Eduardo 2 at KTHSE, password 12345, and I create an account. Please don't fail, system. Don't make me look bad. Create an account. Perfect. I can showcase. This is the same code as is the alert. In this case, the alert is telling me that the activation code is invalid. So it's a way to showcase a message. And the important part is that, and this is important, where is my mouse? Yeah, my mouse is around here. I cannot interact with the rest of the web page. You can see that there is a black, semi-transparent black screen. It's called an overlay. That's the correct term, an overlay. And I cannot interact with the rest of the web page. So this forced me to read this message. And the only option is right now is read the instructions. The activation code is invalid. This should be in uppercase maybe, but in any case. And then the only option that it's given me is to close. I think that there is a similar tool in the no user record. Okay, yeah, this user doesn't exist. Oh my! You see, use test scenarios. It's really nice that the test cases that you make in software engineering are for something. It will be super bad that the user that I just created can access the platform. But in any case, let me go to let me log in as a student. Just give me 1 second. Student as KTH. This is my demo account. Let me go to programming in depth. Let me go to my JavaScript basics. So for example, there is another scenario. There is another window called, I think it's called prompt. Yeah. So if I enter this element and I start to write code like crazy, blah, 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 blah. And for some reason, imagine that your window is a little bit smaller. And the buttons are super close. You didn't realize, and instead of pressing here, you press here, and then your code is entirely deleted. No, we took the liberty to code and make another window, and now the back button is blocked. And then the question is, are you sure that you want to go back? Yes, I want to go back, or cancel, and we stay. So to avoid that, you lose all your data and the time that you spend coding this stuff. So yeah, there is a reason for that.
Okay.
But yeah, no, don't worry. And Decio, did you make the question or did you raise a hand again? I just want to be sure.
No, I just wanted to ask as well if you can pass your values into the alerts, the alert message. If you have a value in your body and you wanted to pass into the alert message.
Of course, you can pass any string, because JavaScript is weird. You can even pass numbers, and they will render as a text. Of course, in fact, in the SDA, I don't hard code the messages. I use variables for the text messages, and then I showcase that variable to the user. So yeah, of course. In fact, in the SDA platform, the error messages in the create account, yeah, I took a lot of time to make this account process important, super well done. The messages are stored in an object, and the object can handle all the text cases with the messages for each kind of scenarios about that. So yes, of course, you can pass variables, 100%. So let's continue. Controlling the HTML with JavaScript. But before we start playing around with the code, we need a little bit of theory to learn about the Object Document Model, or DOM. What is this? If you are into front-end development, you probably already heard about it. But okay, on the left, you can see an HTML document, and you can see all the tags are painted, so you can see the hierarchy. So the yellow one is the one on the outermost one, the outside. Then you have the second level, the heads, in green. Then you have the third level in the hierarchy in cyan, and then the deepest elements in purple. So this is in the left is how you write your code. And as you can see, it's just a way to tell the machine, this is my information in this particular hierarchy. On the other hand, JavaScript doesn't care about your information at all. And why it should care about your information? He doesn't care about what you're writing about. He only cares as the hierarchy of information. As you can see on the right, we have the exact document, but instead of having as a text with tags, we see a tree. So now you can see why in programming in depth, Kavana was so into making this kind of trees and blah, 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 charts and so on and so forth. There is a reason. Everything is connected between programming foundations, programming in depth, software engineering, and front end and back end. Everything is connected somehow. In this case, to control a web page using JavaScript, we need to manipulate the object model, the DOM on the right. The DOM is a tree register of each HTML tag, as you can see on the screen. Each point in the tree is called a node. So as you can see, if you need to access a node that is deeply nested, you need to travel to each node from top to bottom until you find it. And this is why JavaScript can be considered slow in comparison to other languages. And that's why we started to, in the next week, we're going to start using a library called React that actually can solve this problem. And what is the problem that I am referring to? Imagine that using code, you need to modify this tomato. I don't want to use a tomato. I want a banana. A banana. Banana. There you go. Imagine that you are doing this. As a human, if you're working in a team with other developers and you just say, I want to change this, everybody can see where the changes were made in this line. Unfortunately, JavaScript doesn't know about your information. JavaScript knows that only knows that you modify the third list item in the page, but it doesn't know what is the information. So how JavaScript learns what are the changes you just made? It needs to go here to the HTML. There is a li tag here. No. Then I will move here. There is a li tag here. No. Then I go here. There is a li tag here. No. And of course, you cannot put the li tags inside the head, but this is the process. Then if there is nothing more, I will go back to the top. Let me close the slide just for 1 second. I really hate a note during classes. And then I will go back to the top. I will ask, is there is a li tag inside the body? No. Then I will go to the next leaf, and you can see how slow and painful this process is. Then there is a li tag here. No. I will go back. There is a li tag here. No. Let me go inside. There is a li tag here. Yes. There is a banana here. No. Then I will go back. There is a li tag here. Yes. There is a banana. No. One more time. There is a li tag here. Yes, there is a banana. Perfect. Then I can make the change, and now I can reflect the information on the screen. So as boring and annoying this example was, this is how JavaScript manipulates information on the screen. And that's why JavaScript is considered super mega hyper slow. You can see how mega hyper ultra inefficient is to navigate the entire web page, trying to just find a small item. Something that if you tell me what is the change, I can clearly see is here. There you go. JavaScript needs to repeat this process all over again. And each time that you're making changes using code in JavaScript, this process starts over and over again. That's why before we started to use frameworks like Angular, Vue, React, Svelte, etc., people didn't take seriously the web for complex web applications, and the realm or the world of advanced web applications was only possible for companies with billion-dollar budgets like Google or Facebook. Nowadays, everybody's moving to the famous cloud, or everybody's moving to web applications, because now, thanks to these frameworks, the performance has increased tenfold. JavaScript doesn't need to do this stupid dance anymore. The frameworks take care of that. So I make this example boring as hell on purpose, so you can understand why people really never took seriously the front-end developer career as 5 years ago. In fact, if you hear about front-end developer didn't exist until around 5 years. Before that, people say web developer because they make just web pages. Maybe a little bit of JavaScript just to add a little interaction here and there, but nobody takes you seriously if you say I make applications for the web, because nobody took the web seriously before 5 years ago, before these frameworks came. And this is part of the reason. Plus, JavaScript was super weak before. We didn't have these functional concepts. Just the browsers were implementing code differently. So there were many reasons, but this was performance was the biggest one. So complex applications like Gmail took a lot of time to program, to trying to make it as fast as possible. But okay, let's continue. And now let's update our table of confusing terms. And we have one now in the bottom, HTML tag versus JavaScript node. So although for a person, they are the same, for the machine point of view, there are different objects. In fact, they consume different parts of the memory in the RAM. So if you have 11 HTML tags in your web page, you will have 11 in memory in RAM in the computer. You have 11 HTML tags plus 11 JavaScript nodes. So that's why JavaScript also consumes more memory. One is the raw information that you wrote in the HTML file. The other one is the live inside the thread object that JavaScript used to keep track of your HTML file. So they are super related, but they are not the same. One contains your information. One is just a structure to find the information. So quite different. So okay, now that we have the information, now we can start playing around with the code. And how we do that? By using event triggers. We can handle using events in JavaScript. So we finally gonna start making our buttons. The typical example is the HTML formulary, where you have an input box where the user writes something, and then that triggers an event, and then the event runs a function, and that function is not written in Java, it's not written in C#, it's written in JavaScript. Because the web is everywhere, means that JavaScript is everywhere. So let's make this quick example without the design, because that will take even more time to code. So let's go here. Let's delete everything. And let's create this simple formulary. So let's call it now HTML formulary. We have a tag for formularies. It's called form. And here we can create a tag called input type email, because we want an email. In the desktop, it will be the same, but for a mobile, you will open a keyword with the @ sign on purpose. And here we're gonna put a placeholder, for example, Eduardo KTH. Perfect. And then we're gonna create a button. There's multiple ways, but for now, let's create a simple way. And let's say submit. There is a better tag for this one, but for now, let's keep it simple. Okay. The problem is, how do we know which button are we referring? Right now, in this example, we only have one button. So of course, for you, it's easy to understand which button we are trying to make interactive. But in case that you have multiple buttons, for example, let's say that you have submit and, for example, button clear or delete email. reset form, better. Now the machine will not know which button you want to interact with. So this is why we need to either add classes or IDs to our buttons. And let's use the ID method. So for example, ID, and we can say button submit. And this can be called ID button reset. Perfect. So with these IDs, now we can start interacting with JavaScript, and we can find this element on the screen. So let's do that. Let me put this window on the right. There you go. And how we do that? First, we need to create a variable that references this particular button. So let's create a variable in JavaScript. This time will be a constant because I don't want to modify the information. So we will say constant button submit equal, and this is the important part. How do we access the HTML? How do we navigate this object document model? We say document dot get, and we can see options. Get element by ID. This will get the first element with the matching ID. This is why you only should have one ID per page. In fact, older browsers crash if you try to put the same ID twice. For example, if you do submit and submit, older browsers literally crash beforehand. New browsers try to fix the problem by just as soon as you create a submit and they find the second submit, they just delete this behind your scene. Behind your back, they do this to avoid crashes or conflicts. And then you will try to say, hey, but I want to click this button. So the IDs needs to be unique. So let's go back. Document dot get element by ID. You can get one by class name, but if something is unique on your screen, get used to use the ID. It's a better convention. Oh, sorry, and this one, sorry, my bad. Forget about this one. This one has a S, plural, get element by class name. If you just use a class, this will return an array. So then that means that if I use this one, class, I use class, and then I use class. If I use the second element, that is get element by class name, even if there is one element, it will return me an array. And to access an array, you know that you need to do array square brackets 0. But if we know that we only have one single button called submit, it's annoying to need to call an array to get the one item. So you just go with a faster method and get element by ID. And then get element by ID is a function. So I open parentheses. And it says that I need to pass the element ID. What is the element ID? It was this one. Let me correct that. This one. And you can see there is a string. So that means that I need to pass a string. I will copy this one, button submit as a string. There you go. So now I can manipulate this object on the screen. Now let's create a second variable just for the second one. It's exactly the same. Button submit, button reset. Again, document dot get element by ID. Again, pass a string, button reset. Perfect. So this is basically creating properties. Now let's start adding a function and methods. And we're gonna say that we're gonna create a function to showcase a message on the screen. Function send form. Let's say send form. And we're gonna say alert email send or something like that. Question is, okay, I have this function, but if I go to the web page and I reload it, I can see the buttons. I can write something here, blah, blah, blah. I can press submit, but nothing happens. So how do I run this function? How do I connect this variable that contains my button to run this function? So we need to create a new step. And by the way, just to make this process a little bit easier, right now I will change it to a div. I will explain why in a moment, and then I will explain something special about the form. Just remember me that. But the question right now is, how do I connect this button that I know that based on this one? Oh, by the way, let's use this console log. Sorry, console log submit this one. And I will create a fake button just for example, button fake document get element by ID button fake. We know that this button doesn't exist in my HTML. So I will make the first console log submit and the second one button fake to see what happens in the console. I will reload my page. I will inspect element, right click, inspect element, same Mozilla, same Firefox. And I will reload the page. And these ones are not running. Console log, let me see why not. Clear filters. Okay, they're clear filters. Okay, my first console log, and just to make it sure that we're reading console log, let me say console log, comma. You can pass multiple elements in the console log, by the way. This is the standardized format. If you put a comma, they will bring as an array first this element and then the second element. So let's go back. I'm going to say console log, and I can see that this is my HTML button. In fact, you can see that if I hover my mouse, let me just make this console a little bit bigger. There you go. You can see that if I pass my mouse, not only I can see that it's an HTML button, but the browser knows where it's exactly located. It can highlight it on the left of the screen. And the second one is throwing null because it doesn't exist. It didn't find it. So just something to get by. So we know we can assert, or we are super sure that our buttons are connected. So JavaScript knows where's my button. Finally, good. The question is, how do I tell JavaScript that run this function when I press the button? So I need to tell that do something when I press this button. And this is where we enter a new piece of element that you didn't learn in Java, because you didn't learn about graphical user interfaces in Java. We need to add events or event handling. So we're going to create a new section called event handling. And what is event handling? Is basically, as the name says, handler some event that is going to happen. And this event is called the button click. So we are going to literally tell the machine, when I press this button, I want to do something. And we know that the thing that we want to do is to run this function. So let's do that. We're going to say my variable button submit dot add event listener. There is autocomplete event listener. Again, this is a method. So I open parentheses and says the first parameter is a type. So which listeners I can hear? I can hear a click, a mouse hover, and so on and so forth. You can research about that. But the most important one is, of course, is the click. And click is also on mobile. So if you are coding for the web and you want to tap the screen, it's also the click event. Remember that the web was created more than 20 years ago, so we didn't have mobile devices back then with touch screens. So click is a universal command for both mouse click and touch screen. This is my first parameter. My second parameter is the mouse event, and which mouse event is I want to run the send form function. So I want to pass a function. So let's see if it works. Let me go back here, reload the page. And you can see that as soon as I enter the page, it's running the alert window, and we don't want that. What did happen is because I told them right here, this is a problem with JavaScript. This line of code, it doesn't say run this function on click. No, we are just writing code, and inside the code we say, hey, run this function right now, because we put the two parentheses. So we just pass the name, and now we can just if we reload the page, let me close this one. Now the message doesn't appear, and if everything goes well when I press the submit, perfect, email sent. So congratulations, you just learned how to make graphical user interfaces. Literally, I can stop the class right now, and you have everything to start becoming a front-end developer on your own. You can research everything on top of that. Of course, we're gonna keep learning today, don't worry. But what I'm trying to say, you just learn how to make graphical user interfaces. You literally just learn how to put yesterday elements on the screen in 2 days ago. Yesterday, you learned how to make these elements look pretty. And now you are just learn the third and final pillar, how to make these elements interact between each other. So we can make a more complex example and we can start getting information from this one. And it's probably the same process. We go back to this one. Yes, questions, of course.
So in the event handling line 6, you don't need to call the function. Actually, you just write the function name and form.
Yeah, exactly. If you put the parentheses, you are telling JavaScript run this function right away. It's the same as if I do it here. For example, if I put this line of code here, send form, I'm calling this function right away. I'm telling the machine run this function right away.
Okay.
And if you put the same element, let me delete the parentheses to avoid the semicolon. And if you're putting this here, is literally telling you are writing the code for one element, and then while you are doing this, you are calling the function. So it's like you're having a conversation with me, and in this moment, I got a phone call, and instead of speaking to you, I just forget that I'm speaking with you, and I just take the phone call and then go out. It's super rude. But that will be exactly the same. You are doing something right now, and then you change your mind and started to do something different. You just stop doing what you were trying to do right now and call this function right away. This is the parenthesis.
Okay. And then second question, where is the email going?
Oh, right now it's an example. But where this email is going, you will learn that in the second part of this the SDA training. When Kavena goes into the backend, he will expect that you dominate this part. So this lesson is not a joke. You really need to pay attention, because Kavena will teach you how to create a web server. So instead of pointing to this to just writing an alert, you will be able to send this information to a server. I will teach you how to send information to the server, but I will not teach you how to create the server itself. So let me go back to the slides. If I go back to the table of contents, the last topic of the JavaScript course in the front-end module is called fetch data. That is basically how to get information from the web, and we are gonna see also an example of how to send information to the web. So once we send information to a server, my part of the front-end module ends, and then Kavena will teach you how to, I will literally teach you how to send this cup of coffee to a server, and then Kavena will teach you how to receive that coffee from the other side and do something with the coffee cup in the server. Okay, next questions. I think that Jawashi, I saw you first, so go ahead, please, and then Sangeeta.
Okay.
And then no worries, no worries.
My question was, is it better to use the event handling the event listener, or better to use the on click, I think, within the button itself?
You mean putting the code here, right?
Yeah, like there's a field like on click, I think, and on click
right?
equals, yeah, yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, by the way, this will sound funny because right now I will say no, but next week I will say yes, but it will make sense. Don't worry why. Again, separation of concerns. We want our HTML to only represent our data. If you are starting to put logic here, then our HTML, remember, separation of concerns. We want our HTML to represent a Word document. Imagine a Word document, it's just information. Then we have our CSS file just as a graphical design information to make it pretty. And then we want your JavaScript files to have your logic. If you're starting to put the functions here, to call the functions from here, we're making our HTML file a single mess. By that point, I would say don't write this code here. Just put the script tag here. Start writing code here. And if you have 100 lines of code of HTML here, and then 100 lines of code here, and then you say, you know what, I don't need a CSS file. I can just write the style tag here as well. And I write 100 lines of code here. Then you will have one monolithic file that has 300 lines of code. It will work. From the computer point of view, it's exactly the same. but good luck maintaining that file. Good luck having a developer team trying to be productive, trying to work in a single file at the same time. That will never happen. So that's why I will say right now, the answer is no. And now the second part of the, but don't worry. But now let's answer the second part on the next week. Because React is like, this is the fun part. Everything that you will learn in these classes, React will say, you know what, forget about it. And we're gonna do these things differently. In React, we do it in that way. When we reach that point, I will explain to you why. Because React doesn't believe that much in the separation of concerns. It's a different philosophy. So unfortunately, when we reach React, we're gonna do it in a different way. But for now, in the traditional pure JavaScript, and by the way, the traditional JavaScript coding environment still has some advantages. If you code it well, you will have better performance. And some smart TVs don't have so weak processors that they cannot handle React because React adds more complexity. So for example, some company here in Sweden, for example, Nordic Entertainment Group, I will not find the job posting right now because it will take much more time. But if you enter the search for jobs in Nordic Entertainment Group, they ask for pure JavaScript developers, and they explicitly tell, we don't work with React, we don't work with frameworks, because we work in smart TVs. And some smart TVs, okay, if you have your LG OLED television or your Samsung Q60T QLED display, okay, these devices are amazing. But if you buy your cheap no brand LCD TV from who knows where with a processor for who knows who, those devices run super slow. So you need to learn to program pure JavaScript to have the best performance possible. So there is still a market for this pure environment, not as big, but there is a reason for that. And the most important part is what happens in 2 years if React dies and people go back to pure JavaScript. You need to learn the basics of JavaScript before we move to the React world. I know that I went super off topic, but there is a reason that we are learning these old school methods, because this school may be old, but they are not obsolete. And if we reach the optional lecture, developers are fighting for a future where we don't need frameworks at all, because JavaScript is starting to become powerful enough to make this stuff on their own without additional libraries. So I hope that this answered the question, and it will make much more sense next week. I promise.
Yeah, that made sense. Another question that I had was for the button type. I saw that there's also like an ID, and there's also something called as name. I mean, obviously there's a difference between them, but I don't understand it. Could you explain it if it is not off topic?
Yeah, I think you referred to this one, name, right? Yeah.
Yes.
This one is used more for formularies. When you have a label, you need to connect the label to the. For example, we use the IDs for both CSS styling and for the JavaScript logic. When we reach formularies, there is one called label. The label is only for input. You don't use this label tag for anything else that inputs. You can use the name. You can pass a name here, for example, hello, and this is, I think it's something for 2 or 4 name. And when you click on the name, the mouse button will click this one immediately. It's like a small code. Like, we are not coding, but we're telling that when we click here, put the mouse here without coding. Okay. So you don't need to create a JavaScript for that. Remember that HTML existed many years ago. We are talking about something that started around 1990. So remember that we have HTML 1, 2, 3, and 4, and some people needed interaction before JavaScript became powerful. So sometimes you needed this information, and JavaScript was not ready to code this information. So sometimes we have this legacy. So we can do totally this with pure JavaScript nowadays. But there was a time, and for legacy purposes, we cannot delete the old methods. So yeah, that's for it.
If I understood you correctly, like in some websites, there's like a very tiny checkbox and you struggle to click the checkbox. But if they have a label thing, then you can click on the text itself and it will check the text box.
Yeah, indeed. That's a correct
yeah,
behavior.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. In fact, I
Yeah,
think that
thank
I
you.
put it in the
Those were-
yeah. In fact, in the recommended content, I think that I put a video about formulary best practices. If not, I will put it today. That explains some more about this, because if I do it right now, I will go super off topic and then we're going to have a 4-hour lecture like yesterday. That I have no problems doing that, but you probably will not be tolerated. So I need to put a break. So, okay, next question was Sangeeta.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in order to implement the function, we need a parenthesis, right? But with the add event listener, we are calling the function without the parenthesis, but it's implementing the function body. How does the event listener know that the function is having the body and it's implementing it?
Yeah, okay.
In case if we have calculations and all, will it perform the same?
Yeah, I will explain. Right now, we are, let me put this method without arguments. That was my best next part, don't worry, arguments. Before, and the next topic was method with arguments, because yes, this is a good question. If we just pass the name without argument, and we know that if we do this, it will run right away. What happens if I need to pass data? Right now, we are telling the machine, sorry for the parentheses. We are telling the machine when the users click, find a function called send form and run it. This is what the code literally is telling the machine. When the button, let's read it from machines don't read it from left to right, actually read from right to left. When the users click, we're gonna run an event on a button submit. This means that when the user clicks on this button, something will happen. And what is gonna happen? We're gonna tell the machine, find a function called send form. So, okay, where is this one? It's not here, it's not here, it's not here. And I'm not making a joke. Remember, there can be JavaScript around here. So never do that, by the way. And I need to fix this one because it will not run, it will not work. We will find the function somewhere in the entire project. Oh, I found it, it's here. And then I will run it. This is what you're telling the machine. And then in a couple of minutes, we're going to learn how to pass information, because what happens if I need to pass, for example, the input text, literally my input text. And we know that if we do it here, if we do this, it will run right away, and we don't want that. So we're going to learn in a minute, don't worry, we're going to reach that point, how to do that. So did that answer the question, or you were speaking about something else?
Yeah, that was my question. I got the answer, and I'll wait for the parameters.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
No worries. Now, Nuri, go ahead. I'm sorry for keep you waiting.
So, yes, this is good, for us. Thank you. But for me, for general information, I think, my opinion, if we want to understand exactly what the meaning event or what the meaning ID, and can we give us, like a structure of the JavaScript with HTML with the, for example, SQL or whatever, only the figure, and we know exactly what's the connection between HTML, JavaScript, and this is the alarm or event will send, for example, to SQL database or as registering file, for example, and this will give us, like a structure how to pass this comment from JavaScript environment to out of the HTML, for example. That's it.
Yeah, we're going to do an example later, or if not today, tomorrow. If we run out of time tomorrow, on Friday, where we reach the part of the fetching data. So we're going to reach that part of how to call the servers using a function called fetch. Yes, we're going to reach that point, of course, don't worry. Otherwise, this module will be just, instead of calling a front-end development, we just, if we don't do this, we're just going to call it how to make web pages, period. No, we need to have a connect to a server to make an application useful, and we're going to reach that moment, don't worry.
So my question is, as we know, the Java has virtual machines. And now we see the HTML superiority or control of JavaScript. So can we say the HTML has virtual machine or JavaScript has virtual machine?
Okay, yeah, now I understand the question. How the browser runs JavaScript code? That's the question, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I will go ahead super short. I will do the explanation. The reason that I didn't explain it is not because I don't like it. Trust me, I love to speak about these stupid things that happens behind the scenes. I really fucking love to speak about this. Unfortunately, remember that my module is only 2 weeks, and now we have a holiday, 1 day less. So I really need to compact information. Yes, I would love to speak about that. I will do it super quick. Browsers in the past only run HTML and then maybe CSS. Around 95, a browser called Netscape invented the language JavaScript. Literally, they invented a language called JavaScript, and then started to implement something similar to the virtual machine in Java. This is called the interpreter. And the interpreter will read JavaScript in real time and start to run the code. The problem with the interpreters is that they are less performance. So that's why, again, JavaScript always has this stigma that it runs slow. Nowadays, one of the 4 biggest companies in the planet, remember the biggest companies in the planet are Apple, Google, Amazon, and Facebook. And these 4 companies are super cloud-based. Apple a little bit less than the other ones, but they have nice hardware sales to compensate it. In any case, Google released around 2005, 10, sorry, I don't remember the date, Google Chrome. And this one has a super powerful interpreter called the V8 engine. And this V8 engine was created by the most intelligent people on the planet. Let me go back to the Z platform to make sense. Remember that we have these expert exercises, the extra labs, like especially these 2, that I told you, you can have a successful career as a front-end developer if you don't understand how the hell to do that, these ones. Well, Google engineers eat these kind of exercises for breakfast. These guys are the guys that can literally make rocket science. These guys created a super powerful JavaScript engine called the V8 engine. You can research a little bit about that. Is the V8 engine JavaScript. You can learn much about that. And there is a nice lectures about this, how this one actually performs so fast. They actually have compilers behind the scenes. They try to interpret, read into the future what code is gonna run again, predict code to compile it before the user even click it. So for example, if we have this function on this simple page and the machine understands that there is a function behind this one, there is a function behind this one, it will come, instead of reading in real time, it will compile this to the platform code to improve performance. But unfortunately, if I explain that, I will need to take 1 entire day for that, and we are super out of time. This is when I'm so sorry that the front-end module doesn't take more than just 2 weeks. I need to make sacrifices, and for me, it sounds super dangerous, but I prefer that you learn how to make a JavaScript application, even if you don't know what works behind the scenes. It sounds super dangerous, I know. Let me repeat it. I prefer that you learn how to make a JavaScript application, even if you don't know what happens behind the scenes, then you know how everything works behind the scenes, the theory, but then you have no fucking idea how to make a web application. So I need to make compromises, and there are compromises that I don't feel comfortable, but unfortunately, I need to that you become a front-end developer so you can showcase something in the portfolio. And then, of course, you will get these kind of questions in the job interviews. And that's why it's super good that you make this question, because you need to be prepared. Yes. But unfortunately, I cannot cover it.
And thank you so much for this information. But for general questions for I and the class, if you would like to work, because now we work as submit to the database, right? And then for the SQL, MySQL, what is the best to write, a class or ID? Thank you so much for you.
ID, yeah. If you want to work with buttons, ID, just focus ID. And to be honest, next week we're gonna move to React that has totally different paradigms to connect the buttons. So we're not gonna use that in React. So we are just learning the basics of JavaScript for in case that you need to learn work on an environment that doesn't use React. if you don't, if we teach React right away, and then you need to work on enter the workforce, and you will use Angular or Vue, you will be totally lost because React is super different. That's why I need to take a break and give you JavaScript basics. So in case that you use a different technology other than React, you can get used to. Because if I teach you React and then you need to move to Vue, you will not be able to transport your information from React to another framework. But if you learn the basic of JavaScript, you can move from JavaScript to any framework without much hassle. But right now, to close your topic, ID. And we only work with IDs right now.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. I will not take more questions because unfortunately that will be running out of time. But later we're gonna reach another point where we can take questions again. And now the next step are how to pass information from this element to this function. We just discovered that if we do this, it will fail. So we need to discover how to do it. Okay, this is a function without arguments, and this will be called function to function send form. Let's call data with data. So we know that we're gonna have the data, and this will be the input data, and we're gonna say function alert. We're gonna use a new way to write messages. It's called the string literal. Instead of using the double quotes, we are gonna use the backtick. I think is in your keyboard. In your keyboard, I think it's option C. I will not take more questions, sorry, because otherwise we're gonna break too much. But I will, in the break, I will be able to answer more questions. I saw somebody raising the hand. So we're gonna say a message, and we're gonna say hello, and to call this variable inside this string, we can use the $, curly brace, and we're gonna say input data. So we're gonna call this email, so we can know who sent the email. Let's do that. We need to go back to our JavaScript, to our CSS. Let me minimize the head so it's closed and we can read easily. Step number 1, let's fix the screw up that we did here. Source, remember, /. Open the JavaScript folder, script.js. First step. Step number 2, we need to know which input. I know that we have only one input, it's an example, but again, we need to identify from the JavaScript point of view what element are we referring to. So we need to create an ID, and we're gonna say input email, because we can have probably multiple inputs, one for the password, from your name, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna say a constant input email equal document get element by ID input email. You know that you can check by using console log and then say print the input email and pass the mouse to see if is the correct input. We are not gonna do it to recover some time, but so far now it's working perfect. Now the question is, how do we pass this data? We know that we cannot do this. Yeah, we already know that, because if I do input data, it will fail. So how do we do that? How do we pass the information? That's the problem. So it's a form. So how do we pass parameters to this one? The autocomplete is messing stuff up. So we know that we cannot put the arguments here. So we need to discover a way to run a function with the arguments. And this is where JavaScript becomes a mind fuck. And we're gonna close this one for a while. And we're gonna create something super crazy. This is what is called an Arom function. And I think that during the second part of the JavaScript activities, we saw Arom functions in the labs. And what is an Arom function? An Arom function is is a way to write a function in one single line of code. How do we write an Arom function? The parameter is like this. I will put it upside on purpose so we can see it in a nice environment. This will be Arom function. We're going to put an Arom function here. So how do we write the Arom function? It's simple. We create empty parentheses. And we draw an arrow with the equal and the greater than. And then inside these parentheses, inside this element, we can create code. We create a code. So this one is the equivalent of saying function hello, for example, hello, arguments, and then there you go. So we can see that we skip the name, we skip the word function. We are literally doing this. And then putting the arrow function here to tell there is a function. This is what we're doing. I know that it makes no sense right now. And this is something that you need to get comfortable with, but now you will understand why it's important. In this case, I will write the arrow function here. Or let me write the code, the correct code here. I will create my arrow function equal parentheses arrow, create my contents, and inside here, I can put send form with data. And I can put my arguments input data, for example. Why this one will work and sending the information right away will not? The answer is quite simple. If I just copy literally this one, I can copy it and paste it here and save it. And I know that it looks messy. It will make more sense in a while. But why this works while the other method didn't? The thing is that you are not calling a function. You are not calling a function. You are creating a function on the fly. You are literally creating a function here. Let me create function Eduardo, argument 1. There you go. Here, send form with data. There you go. So we're inside. Yeah, this looks super messy. We just create a function we created, not calling. We are creating code inside another line of code. Everything that we taught you in Java that you should never be disorganized and create this mess, JavaScript says, you know what? I don't care. Do it. It's horrible. It's horrible. You are creating a function, not calling. You are creating code inside a function. So it's basically the equivalent that I'm creating. I'm doing something like this in this comma. And then I went crazy and say var hello equal blah, blah, blah. I'm declaring information here. Like I'm creating a Java class here, class main, blah, 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 constructor. So I'm creating code inside a function because this is a function. I know that it looks super, super disorganized. And it is. There is no other way around it. It is disorganized. That's why we use the arrow function, because the arrow function at least tries to keep the chaos at bay. So let's write the arrow function again, but in a cleaner way. I will say my parentheses. I will create my arrow, and I put my content inside this one. And inside my content, I will say send form with data. This is my data. In this case, I will say, for example, test FDA9. Perfect. I will not run the prettier right now because I want that it looks super visible on the screen that where is happening. I will save it, Control C, and reload the page. Cross the fingers, press submit, and hello test FDA9, and we are pasting data. Perfect. So let's clean this function to look a little bit less messy. It is messy. This file, by the way, I will send this file to you at the end of the class because yeah, there is nowhere around it. I will answer questions later. Don't worry, I promise. But now you can see that this one looks it runs in a single line of code. So let's literally comment every single line. Button submit is a JavaScript variable that points to a HTML tag in my index.html file. So let's write a documentation for every single line of code. .add event listener. I will just put this one is an event listener. There you go. Event function. This is the call sign. Is a function that activates when a user interact with the button. Period. And now let's gonna say event, and in parentheses, this click, no, event, for example, click is an event for either mouse clicks, or smartphones, tabs. And finally, this is an arrow function. I will pronounce in a word. Finally, my arrow function in this part, and we'll put it this one. I will call this one some form data, just to make it shorter, so we can see it easily on the screen. This one is a Arom function. It's a shorthand to create a function on the fly. No, in real time. Let's use the word real time. In real time, inside another function. And yes, this is why people hate JavaScript. Like you're creating a function inside another function, and this is super normal. And you need to practice this today in the afternoon a little bit, because this is my bread and butter in React. We do this in React every single day. Like every I'm not joking. Every 15 lines of code in React, you're gonna find something like this. So I will send you a video about our functions to make it easier to understand. And I also mentioned these ones when we reach React, so don't worry about that. But in any case, we have we have this. It says data, but we need to pass actual information for the input. So how we do that? Well, it turns out that I don't need to pass information here at all. I just can send it like this. I just wanted to teach you how to use our function. So you can just use this the previous method. I will not delete it. I will keep it as an arrow function, so you get comfortable using arrow functions. But you can use this method. And here, once we press the data, we can pass the data from the input. And let me see what I will showcase why we need to put the data from the form here instead of here. Let's say, let me go back to my HTML. Let me just give me one back to my HTML. Let's say that inside this one, sorry, this is the script. Index and the script on the right, index on the left. Let's say that this one has a value, for example, instead of placeholder, we're going to say, please put your email. Please write your email. Perfect. And then I will say as a value, I will say, for example, eduardo@kthsc. So I will reload the page. Now that you can see that this is not a placeholder, this is real text. Perfect. And if now with that information, I can focus on my index, in my index. So I can focus on this one. And let's say that inside this one, I will say the form input data dot I think it's value. I think it was input form was no value. Maybe it's no value. Let me see if I reload the page and I press submit. No. Let me see the double schools input value in JavaScript to get the correct input text. It's input text value. Yeah. Input my text dot value value. Maybe it was this one. Submit. Perfect. Now it's working. It was input value. But why we don't pass data like this? I will show you right away. If I do this and the users change the email, for example, I don't know, hello@chalmers.se, and I press submit. Oh, it worked. Because yeah, it actually works. This is the thing that I was trying to do. Sorry. So yes, you can pass the input value, but to be more organized, you can just do it here as well. You can put it here. It's more organized, because imagine that you need to pass multiple data. Let me let me put it, for example, let's start creating more input fields. Like for example, one for the name, input name, name. Please write your name, the name, and say we're not gonna use values. If you start to do that, let me delete this one. Well, we need to create an input for the name. Input name as well. If you need to do that, the problem is that you are going to start messing around and you will start passing elements like crazy. Input mail, input name, value, comma, and then you're passing multiple arguments, and then I need to pass name and email. This is getting out of control, and this function is starting to become bloated. So that's why it's better to not pass nothing here for data. Don't pass nothing here. And inside the function, I can just call input name. Hello, input name, for example, const name equal input name dot value. And then const email equal input email dot value. And then hello, Eduardo, comma, your email is email. And now we have something that is cleaner, and we make that, or every listener just takes care of firing a function, and inside the function we actually have our concerns of sending the form data, requesting the information from the inputs, and then this alert is simulating sending information to the server. So let's test it out. Eduardo at KTH. See, and if everything goes well, hello Eduardo, your email is KTH. So this is a way to organize your JavaScript files. And I will delete this one. Well, sorry, I will close this one. I will put this one in a nice folder because it will be exercise 1. Exercise 1. In case that we need to do more exercises, I want to keep this one as a perfect copy so you can use it at the end of the lecture. So now I will take a couple of questions. Oh no, we have a break, 15 minutes. We're gonna have a 15-minute break and we return at 10:30, and then I will answer a couple of questions about that. I will not answer questions during the break because then people will feel the pressure that they need to stay during the break. So I really need that people have the break. So we are returning at 10:30. So hello, we're back. Let's speak about the things that are in the chat right away. First of all, let's debunk the most important one, the exercise. The exercise for today, I will unlock it right away after we finish this lecture. In fact, if you want, I can go through it and make a quick read so you understand what it's about. So don't worry about that. Topic number 2, if people are checking that you need to know React for a front-end development position. Yes, that's why we teach React next week, period. There is no question about it. I do prefer another framework called Vue, but we teach React because React is the one that you need to learn, period, if you want to get a job in Sweden as a front-end developer. TypeScript, yes, there is an optional lecture about TypeScript. I don't remember the date. I think it's next week or it's tomorrow. I will check. To be honest, I can do it in any order. I do prefer to teach TypeScript tomorrow, to be honest, but let's check the dates later. And what else I saw in the chat? Exercises about JavaScript, great. Oh, and also I added, let me share the screen. I added in the recommended content this element, this item, Arom Function. So you can watch a nice video with a nice explanation how to convert your old functions into Arom functions. But this will be a nice moment to actually give again the tour, because I remember mentioning it on Friday, but it looks like nobody clicked on this one. This content, I should call it optional so you understand the context of what is so important. Yeah, I will rename this one optional content so you get the idea. This is really important. We have a lot of information. For example, all the tags of CSS to the styling. You have a basics of typography. You have a short video about Flexbox to get a quick introduction of what is Flexbox about. You have a complete documentation about Flexbox. It's super complex, but this is the Bible that when you need to implement Flexbox and you need to remember what are the methods, the properties, and so on and so forth, this is the perfect guide to do that. Then there is a learning exercise about Flexbox. The best way to practice Flexbox is just literally doing Flexbox. So this game will help you practice. Then there is a video about CSS grid. Then this is the most important one. This one has that's why it has a red text on top of this. I'm sharing the screen, right? Just in case. Yes. Yeah, perfect. So in this one, we have how to make layouts in CSS. Yesterday, I teach about how to use the grid to make columns. This one has even more advanced complex examples using grid. This is a video by my people from Google, so the video is amazing. Finally, when we reach React, we need to learn about how to organize our projects in a better way, especially the CSS. This article will help you with that. Then, if you want a little bit about animation, the basics, this is totally outside the scope of the course, but if you want to learn a little bit about that, here you go. And this was the one that I shared in the general channel on Monday, in case that you wanted to do some styling before we enter the CSS properly. Now let's open the JavaScript tab. This one has all the main methods and functions in case that you still need help to transition your skills from Java to JavaScript. This one teaches how to make comments, variables, arrays. This is the super basic guide, like imagine programming foundations for JavaScript, this article. This one, super important. I really recommend it. And I mentioned this on Friday, but I will take the blame if you haven't checked it out because maybe I didn't spend enough time. This article is super important. This article is based on a book that I will strongly recommend to everybody to read once they finish the SDA. I really hope that you can see the webcam. It's called the Pragmatic. Oh, sorry, no, this is not the book. It's this one. It's based on this one, the clean code. And the link that I have is a summary version. It's called Clean Code for JavaScript because the original book is, I think, is for Java. Yes, it's for Java. So this one will teach you how to make a readable code because, again, based on my experience in the IP, and I don't mean only your IP SDA 9 iteration, I mean the 8 and the 7. I know that your project work. Yeah, you can create a to-do list. You can store it in the hard drive. But I saw so many projects, again, 7, 8, and 9, that the code base is so messed up that, to be honest, if somebody tell me I need to add a new functionality in that project, I will tell the client, I can do the give me 3 days and I will do the project from scratch, because I will not touch this code base because it's bad. This document will help you write better code in JavaScript, and this book will help you make better code in Java and in any language in general. So this is a recommended one, and once you finish this one, it's called the Clean Code. I will send the links after the lecture. And no, I am not promoting any bookstore, by the way. And this one is called the Pragmatic Programmer. So I think that many of you, I know that some people are learning how to code here in the bootcamp, and I know that some of them already have plenty of experience. But in both cases, I see code base that are so bad that I personally will not hire at that current skill level. These books will help you move to the next level. That is how to write code that is easy to understand. So further developers and recruiters can fall in love with your code. Thus, you will get a higher chance to get hired. So super important books. And before you commit to buying the books, or just don't buy it, at least you have this nice guide, and it's super long, so you will not be able to finish in one single day. So that's why my recommendation is during the recommendation that I put in the recommended content last week and Friday is read as much as you can each day during the module and save it, because you're gonna need it again for the group project. So this one is super important. Then another one, a couple of tips to improve your JavaScript code. So this is a nice tip. So for example, the console log, I think that this one explains the string literal that I show you with the backticks. For example, Nuri, you wanted to go a little bit in depth and what is behind the scenes in JavaScript. I already created this article for you, so don't worry. This one was ready since the 8th, so you can watch it. Then this is the important one. I added this one right now during the break. This is something that we need to add because I just checked that the JavaScript labs didn't have much information about Arom functions. To be honest, I really thought that we covered Arom functions during the code exercises. I realized that we didn't cover as much as I needed. So I added a new video just for this one, and this video is excellent. This will help you convert your old functions into Arom functions, but it doesn't mean that you need to write every single line of code in JavaScript from now on as a function, as an Arom function, but it will teach you how to convert a normal function into an Arom one, because we're going to need this one in React. And let me copy and paste. We need to watch before we reach React. Watch before we reach React. And I will put it in red because this is important. This is not a passive-aggressive mode to say you really need to focus on this and this kind of stuff. There you go. Then you have a one for promises. We're gonna check promises maybe tomorrow. So yeah, please try to check this one before we reach. This is not called recipe. It's called fetch data. Fetch data. There you go. So yeah, this you can watch this one today. Again, I want that you need to read what during the weekend before we reach React. And again, before we reach React, and this is an optional one, another optional one, in just case you want to learn about the stuff. So yeah, maybe I didn't was explicit enough on Friday. I will take the blame for this one. Please check this content. I remember saying that I create this content for you guys based on the content that I use as my own reference when I build the projects. I do remember that I did say that. But maybe I didn't spend the time explaining each of the articles, but I didn't do that in the 8 as well. But in any case, there is valuable content here. So you don't need to spend hours searching over the net. If you want to learn about Arom functions, you don't need to Google Arom functions in Google and open 10 articles and cross your fingers that at least 1 or 2 of these articles are good enough. I already had that problem as a junior developer a couple of years ago, and I already compiled this list for you. So please use it because it's valuable resources for you. And the same with React and extra content that. So please take your time and read this recommended guide, because sometimes it looks like that I really need to put mandatory here to people understand that This was a recommendation from the bottom of my heart, so you don't spend hours looking in the web. This is curated for you guys, so use it, please. Use it. But okay, back to normal for normal content. Let's go back to the slides. After we learn how to trigger events, blah, 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 we can go and check that we can research about using the DoubleTree Schools reference webpage. We can learn about how to make events for each one elements of these ones. So for example, this one's the radio and the check use the onChange event. And this one also, the select an option also use the onChange event. We already knew use the input one. You just literally call the input.value. So you can research the other ones as well. And now let's move it to a little bit of more theory again. The web storage. How do we store some information in the user browser? If we want to store information that is accessible for a user by logging in any device from the phone to the computer, we need a server. But if we just want to store a quick information, either for a quick demo or something basic as, for example, your favorite background mode, because some websites are starting to implement dark mode or in the themes, something like, let me show you, for example, this website. For example, this one has the light mode. Unfortunately, regardless of what is my option, sorry, let me see. Oh yes, this one actually saved this one. As you can see, it saved my preferences. So as soon as I empty the cache, let me put it in dark mode, and let me see if I empty the cache. No, okay, the empty cache doesn't delete the cookie. But as you can see, you can save this kind of information in the browser, and it's stored. So I can close the window, reload the page, and it still will work. So how do we do that? It's using something called the Web Storage API. So, and what is that? Well, quite simple. The Web Storage API, you can see that you have a link for learning more. It's a modern implementation added maybe less than 10 years ago. What is allow us to store information in a modern way, because before that we used cookies, and cookies were a super dirty element. It was literally a text file stored in your web server. So we invented a better way, well, people invented a better way, and this is called the local storage and decentralized storage. What does this allow us to do is to store information in the browser. And the difference between these two methods, local storage can save information for a long time until the user deletes the browser cache. And session storage is save the same information until the browser closes the tab. So this one, the second one, is ideal for login sessions. So let's make an example of this one. Let's open the Visual Studio Code. I will create exercise 2. That's why I'm creating these folders, exercise 2. And this one will be about the web storage. So, oh, sorry, this is not a folder. Now this is a folder, new folder, new file. Oh, sorry, new folder, sorry, exercise 2. And in this one, we're going to create index.html, HTML5, and this one will be about web storage. Title, web storage. Here, we're going to write H1, web storage. Perfect. And we're gonna write, we're gonna ask the user 2 questions. What are their favorite song, and what is their favorite movie? One will survive even if we close the browser, the browser tab, or even close the window. And the other one only will survive where I do a reload page. But as soon as I close the tab, it will be deleted. So we're gonna practice with both. So let's create an input type. Text, because it's normal text. And the place, the label will be, let me wrap it up in a label, and the label is for, you can see the for, let's say, call this one a song. This one will be name song. Perfect. And this one as a placeholder, for example, let's create a random song as a placeholder, as an example. Welcome to the jungle. Perfect. And this label will be what's your favorite song? This will be the this one will be the local storage. Save forever until the user clears cache. And the second one will be session storage. And save until the user close the tab. Perfect. So let's copy this one. And instead of a song, this will be a movie. Type text. And what's your favorite movie? Movie. And this, for example, can be Arrival. It's just an example. You can choose anything.
Oh, so boring.
And finally, the submit button. The submit. So we create a button. Remember, we need an ID, and we're gonna call it button save because we are gonna save both at the same time. Perfect. And then we're gonna say save information. Perfect. To make it, the design a little bit better, I will create an horizontal rule because I don't want to add CSS. I don't want to complicate the exercise further. So I will create this one. I can put it here and here. And let's see this example. Open Rebellion Finder index. So perfect. This is the web storage. This is the web storage, and we have these two elements. What is your favorite movie and what is your favorite song? And just to make it a little bit prettier, let me just see if I can wrap up this one here. And if I click in here, oh, it's supposed to click here, but okay, I will check that one later. And I will wrap up this one as well here, label, there you go. Perfect. And I will put a BR before this element, so BR and BR here as well, BR here. So now looks way better, perfect. So we want that when we click this button, we save this information. So let's do that. Let's add a JavaScript file in the script. And let's create a file first. Inside the exercise, we create a folder, JavaScript. Remember, be organized. Always create a folder. Don't put the JavaScript files in the root. It's a bad practice. If you don't learn to get organized, even in these small scale examples, when you reach the project, the group project, you will still have these bad habits. So you need to learn to have a good organization skills here. So when you reach the group project, you can do a nice job over there. So okay, I create the JavaScript file. I will just create an alert. It's working, just to test it out. Script source / JavaScript script.js. Sorry, I don't close it like this. I close it like this. There you go. And let me reload the page. It's working. It's working. Perfect. I have an ID for this one, and I forgot to add an ID for this one. So ID will be input movie, and this one will be where is here? Is here. ID input song. Perfect. And I like that this one becomes like this. It will be the. I know it's not called the arrival. It's just arrival, but I just want that it becomes separate lines like this one, just so we have some symmetry. So in any case, let me put this one here and this one here, so it looks a little bit more organized. Much better. It looks way better now. Perfect. So now we can focus on the script. So we know that the first step is to find my elements, my HTML tags, to convert them in JavaScript nodes. So the first one will be input song equal document get element by ID input song. Perfect. The second one is input movie document dot get element by ID input movie. And the third and last one of the properties, sorry, let me call this properties. My last one is the button. I will just call the button in this example because we are literally only using one button here. So document get element by ID. I think it was called button submit, button save. Okay, I will call it button save just to be organized. I don't want to say be organized and then be disorganized myself. Okay, we have it. Next, we add the event listener, event handling. Event handling, listening, you will find this information in the web with both names. It's exactly the same. Event handling and event listening are exactly the same. So we're gonna say button save dot add event listener. And you can probably guess that this is the correct name, to be honest. Add event listener. We want the click event, and then we want to run the function. Don't worry about the arrow right now. We are not gonna touch the arrow right now. We're just gonna call the function called save information. Save information. Well, let's call it save information is okay. I think that you understand what this is about. And now let's add our methods or method singular save information function save information. And now let's add a new requirement because we probably need to also delete the information. So let's create another button. This will be action buttons. We are creating a button to clear the information. I forgot to add that the previous button in the previous exercise, so we're gonna do it here. So this one will clear the information. Button save and delete. And this will be delete information. Perfect. So let's add the new button. Button delete document. Why I'm creating the button delete is because sometimes it's harder to delete the cache. So I want to force the cache on purpose by pressing a button. So get element by ID, button delete. And we're going to create methods, save information. And we're going to create also a function called delete information. So if we can create something, we can destroy it as well. So let's create this save information. And this is what we're going to do. We need to save info as a local storage, save info as local storage, and save info as session storage. Perfect. So how do we do that? It's quite simple. We create a constant. Let's be organized. A constant local info equals input son dot value. You know that. So this is the information that we're going to store as information. And then I think that was, let me see, was document dot local storage. No, save information. No, it's not saving information. Just give me 1 second. Let's do it in the double-tree schools. Double-tree schools, local storage. So we can load and local storage property. Perfect. So it's local storage. Okay, it's literally local storage dot. This is for calling. We're going to also call information. No worries. And set item. Perfect. Is set item. Set item. And we're gonna the local storage is basically a JSON or an object, or let's use your Java terms. It's a hash map. Hash map. Yeah, correct. It's a single dictionary that stores keys and values. So first we need to tell the name of the value that we want, the name of the key that we want to save. So let's gonna call it local info, and then we're gonna say, okay, this is the name in your dictionary. Let me just create an example here. So let's call it, imagine a Java hash map called web storage equal an object, and you can create keys. For example, I will create a key called local info. And then the value in this case will be welcome to the jungle. And then I will create another key called session info. And this one will be, for example, the arrival. Arrival. So this is what we're trying to create. The browser has a small object or Java hash map called web storage, web local storage, and you can store as many keys and values as you want. There is a limit of 5 megabytes, but per web page, but 5 megabytes, you can store thousands of small strings like this one. So there is no problem about hitting the limit. And if you need to store more advanced data, like an image, you definitely then need to go move to a server. But in any case, let's call this key local info, and then the value will be, we can put this one so we make the exercise shorter. Perfect. So local storage set item local info as a key, and then the input song as a value, and then do the same with the session storage. Session storage set item is exactly the same signature. Session info, comma, input movie dot value. Perfect. Now this will save the information. The problem is that we don't know if the project is working, because as soon as I reload the page, the information will not appear on the screen. Even if we are storing it, let me just showcase this example. Let me just console log at the beginning, console log. Let me call, for example, console log this is the get item. So for example, cons initial value 1 equal local storage get local info. And then the second one, I will explain the exercise in a moment, don't worry, session info. So as soon as we load the page, I want to see what are the values stored in the browser. And right now at the beginning, they will throw undefined or null, all of them. So let me open the console, spec element, console. I will reload the page and they will throw null because we haven't stored anything yet. So let's store one song here. For example, I don't know, any suggestions? Or was I will say just ABC. Right, well, let's see, for example, Avengers Endgame. I don't think, no, let's use Rush. This is a better movie. So let me save the information. Perfect. There is no messaging on the screen. That definitely is, as a user interface designer, you need to tell, show an alert and say, your information was saved successfully or something like that. But let's reload the page and cross the fingers and see if the information was saved or not. Reload the page. The first was saved. The second one not. Let's see what happened. Session info. Oh, it's because it's not a local storage. It's a session storage. Session storage, get item. So let's try it again. Oh, it's working. It actually saved the information. Perfect. So, oh, because I changed the variable here. Perfect. So as soon as we reload the page, we can see that the initial values are these ones. In fact, I can make this console log better. At the beginning, my initial values are, comma, my initial values are ABC and Rush. So I can say, for example, like here, golden never dies. No, die another day. Another day. This is a Madonna song from the 007 movie. Die another day. Perfect. And this one will say, for example, GoldenEye. This time it's not a song, it's the movie. Save information. Reload, and it's working. But let's see this important part. If everything goes well, if I close the tab, the second one should be deleted. So let's test it out. I close the browser. I open the index. Rebellion Finder. I open the index. I open my console to see the information, and let's see if everything is working. The song is stored. The second one is throwing null, because as soon as I close the tab, my information is done. So this is the one that web pages uses when you're logging in your email, unless you check the checkbox, remember me, they use a session storage. And that's for security reasons, because for example, if you are using sensitive information, like for example, like credit card information, you definitely need to delete your credentials as soon as you close the browser. Or even you can go one step ahead and create a function that runs after 5 minutes of inactivity to auto log out for security reasons. But if you want to store the information for a long time until the user deletes the cache, you need to do that. Let me see if I can empty the caches right now, the information. Let me just reload the page. It's still open, but let me delete the cache in my browser from preferences. Let me see what is in here to delete the privacy. I think it's in privacy. Website data, remove all, remove now. And I think there was another way to clear the cache in Safari. No, it's clear in Safari extension, clear history, sorry. Clear history. If I clear the entire history and I reload my page, they're throwing null because we delete the cache. So that's a way to delete the information. But let's see how we can delete information as well from JavaScript. So it's quite easy. Let's create this one. And it's exactly basically exactly the same as this one. Local storage dot delete item. Delete, I think it's delete item. Delete item. Local info. And session storage dot delete item. Session info. I will take questions in a moment, no worries. Let me just be sure that this is the correct ones. And let's add the thing that inform the user. Inform the user. This will be alert. Your info about songs and movie preference, movies, is stored.
There's a typo in delete item, the first one.
In the first one, this one?
Yes, yes.
Delete. Oh, yes, right. Thank you so much. Nice. Thank you. And we're going to do the same here. We're going to inform the user, because we are user interaction designers now, thanks to Jesse's lecture, that your information was safely deleted. Your info is safely deleted. There you go. So reload the page, and let's say the song, for example. I cannot believe that I have an Apple Music subscription and I don't remember the songs that I do have. So it's amazing that. But okay, let's put welcome to the jungle again. Welcome to the jungle, And as a movie, let's say another one, for example, let's go back with the first one, Rush. Safe information. And then we have a message, nice message. Perfect. I reload the page. I see that my initial values are these ones. Perfect. And then I will delete the information. Let's see what is happening. I press delete. Oh, I didn't add the event listener. So that's why it's not working. So let's go back and fix this example. Here are button example, or event listeners. So we need to add button delete. Add event listener. Again, on click. And this time is delete information function. Remember, without the parentheses. And for now, don't stress about the arrow functions. We don't need them yet. We're gonna need them in React. So don't panic. Tomorrow, we're not gonna touch that much about arrow functions, barely. So don't stress about the arrow functions. The arrow functions are needed for React. So that's why I covered them today, but it's not necessary for this particular part of the training, but you need to learn the arrow functions by React. So maybe it was a mistake on my part to introduce to the arrow functions today here. Maybe I panicked you too early, but it's better that you're a little bit scared than you're confident about React. We're gonna need the arrow functions in React all the time. So you need to be comfortable using arrow functions, not today, not tomorrow, but by Monday, you really need to be comfortable 100% with arrow functions. But I've sent the link in the recommended content to prepare you for that one. But sorry for the panic in the morning a couple of minutes ago. It was not necessary to introduce the Arom functions yet. But it's better that you get scared and be prepared instead of because I never saw anybody connect to the recommended guide, by the way. So at least this panic attack was useful, so you know that you need to read this spreadsheet all the time. So something good came out of it. In any case, we connect your function. So let's reload the page. We know that the information is working. And let's delete the information. I press delete. And let's go, is another function, perfect. Let's debug this one. So let's see what is the correct name. So double tier schools, local storage, delete. And let's read what is the correct method. Because I delete the cache, my browser window, it's called remove item. Okay, it's remove item. So it's not delete item, it's remove item, perfect. That's why I didn't get autocomplete info. Oh, and by the way, something cool about Visual Studio Code, you pass the mouse over a function in JavaScript and you got the information. So let's set the value of a pair of identify key to value. Oh, this information is super cryptic, but this stores a key value in your local storage, and this one stores a key value in your session storage. And these ones are separated. So if you actually say, for example, name and name, they're going to be different keys objects because they are stored in different objects. I remember that I wrote an example here, something like that, like const web storage, and I say something like local info equal welcome to the blah, blah, blah. And then I say session info, let me put a comma here. And I say session info, blah, 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 equal rush, blah, blah, blah. But no, it's a mistake. Actually, JavaScript keeps information in two different objects. One is for the local, and one is for the session. So something to consider by. So, okay, now it's supposed to work now. One more try, delete information. Your information was safely deleted. I press close. And if I reload the page, my values are null. Perfect, so it's working. Before we continue, I will take a couple of questions. So because I see the chat has a lot of messages. So moving to TypeScript, blah, blah, blah. So any questions while I read the chat? Yeah, the FlexFlow Froggy is amazing. Yeah. Essential mandatory, it's still optional, but highly recommended. Do you have any book recommendation for React? Do you have any book recommendation for React? Not yet. I never see a React book. But the last 2 weeks, by the way, I spent a lot of time writing a couple of articles for you guys. So I really hope that they are useful. And if not, anything that any hole that I put in the articles that I did, and I swear that I spent a lot of time. So I really hope that they're good. We're gonna cover it in class. But after that, I will recommend Free Coding Camp as a resource for learning React, but I don't have a book for React. Yeah, to be honest, no. But if I find someone, I will recommend it definitely. Okay, there is a recommendation by Olga. Perfect, thank you. Can you please share the lecture code? Yes, this code, I will share it because we are not making this, you don't need to make this exercise today, like to practice. Well, I will recommend it to do it, but I will share the code from today. That's why I actually created the folders. Remember that yesterday I was deleting each time that I was making a new concept in HTML, I was deleting content. That's why I didn't do it today, because today contents will be shared right as we finish. The content for Monday and Tuesday, no, because that you need to do that on your own. Sorry. Can you not? We can use not the console tab in the browser, but in the storage tab. Oh, thank you. Nice recommendation. To see the storage. Perfect. Nice tip from Olga. Please, you can actually speak aloud right now if you want to. The testing. I see the testing part will be a pain. No, unfortunately, I will not cover testing in the front-end module. Why? Because we don't have enough weeks. I need to cut content because if we put everything that you need to learn in the front-end module, you will not learn, to be honest, anything. The lectures will be, hello, the theory of the topic, and then we'll not be able to practice anything because there is so much theory that is impossible. So I cut testing entirely on the SDA in the front-end part because 2 weeks are not enough. So I'm so sorry for that. But in the optional lecture, I will mention what is the library that people use to test React components. But I will not be able to teach it, sorry. If we have if we have 1 more week in front-end development, if we were 3 weeks instead of 2, I will not even add testing. I will add 1 week of just preparation, introduction to JavaScript, more HTML and more CSS. And if we have a 4th week, then I will add testing, because I think that you need to learn to write good React code before you can test it, because otherwise, if I don't teach you how to write good React code, it doesn't matter that you can write good tests if you don't know how to write React code at all. So you need to learn to write React before you can test something that is useful. So that's my philosophy. Next one, you are scared. Yes, we are scaring Harry more or less to practice arrows. Yes, it's better that you're prepared that you need to master arrows by Monday. But I will put the resource. I put the resources, and I hope that the articles that I put over there help a little bit with that. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry, I saw your hand raised, but I wanted to finish the chat. Go ahead.
By clicking on a button, we are getting an alert message, and down we are having a close icon to click.
Sorry, can you go again? Let me.
Yeah. By clicking the button, we are getting an alert message. And down we are having a close option to close the alert message.
Yes.
From where we are getting the close option?
Good question. That method comes from the browser directly. So for example, if I press delete, this is the style with Windows.
Can you share your screen?
Oh, I'm not sure. Okay, thank you. No worries. My bad. So for example, let me open this exercise both in Chrome and in Safari at the same time so we can see the difference. This Chrome is so slow. I don't know why people like this one. There you go. It's open now. And I will put my exercise. Yes, as you can see that the buttons look different and the inputs looks different as well. The title looks exactly the same. You can see that if I press, for example, save, the window looks like this. And if I press save here, the windows appear here, and it doesn't, even if it blocks the web page behind it, I don't see the overlay. So this window is created by the browser. It's not created by you. So if you want, for example, to create a more elaborate alert window, there are libraries. For example, I think it's alert.js that allows you Alertify, for example, Alertify that allows you to create a better wrong example. That allows you to create more windows. And for example, this window even has a maximize button, and you can change the title of the button. So if you want to make a personalized alert window, there is JavaScript libraries for that. But it's created by the browser.
Okay. And how can we add more than 2 options at that place? Can we add 2 options like OK, cancel, back?
Okay, cancel. Okay, yeah. That one, let me do it. Okay, in fact, let me modify the exercise from here, from the delete for this one. So let's say that we don't want that the user to create a nice question. Thank you so much. Let's say that the user we want to avoid, just like the code exercises in the SDA platform, we want to prevent the user to click by mistake. So we're gonna make a prompt. And let me research about this one. I'm sharing the screen, right? So DoubleTree schools again.
Yeah.
It's called prompt. And window prompt. Accept. So we're gonna create a constant called prompt, and this is equal prompt open parentheses. And are you sure that you want to delete info, your info? Perfect. So this variable holds this information, and the return of this one, even if the Visual Studio Code says any, this actually is a Boolean. A Boolean, remember, either in Java or in JavaScript or any language in the world, a Boolean is a true or false value. So this will create a pop-up window with the OK and the cancel. Cancel will be false, OK will be true. So if we know that this one is a Boolean, Boolean in parentheses true or false. Remember that we can play around with the Booleans to create an if statement. So if prompt, and just to avoid mistakes, I will call this a question, because I don't want to have a conflict between this one and the name of the variable. So if question equal true, I don't need to put equal true. You don't need to do this, because if you just put question, is the machine understanding. So if question equal true, we're gonna proceed to delete. So let's say local storage dot remove item, local info, and then the same session storage dot remove item, session info. And let's say an alert telling the user your info is deleted. Else, we're gonna say alert. Okay, we will keep your infos safe. So the user is calm down, understand. Oh, I didn't make a mistake. So let's test it out.
Eduardo, you delete it. You delete the info because you left it at the top.
What? Sorry.
Right at the beginning of the function, you left it to remove, so you would delete it automatically.
Oh, wow! Nice catch. Congratulations. Yes, you are 100% right. You are 100% right. Congratulations for that one. Thank you. So let's try it again. Open console, just in case. We know my values are empty right now. So let's say welcome to the jungle, and GoldenEye as I save information. Perfect. It's a store. We reload the page, and I press delete. Oh, this is a prompt. This that was sorry. Prompt is something if you want to ask a question to the user. I use the incorrect element, but you just discover it's called confirm. There you go. So we know that we cancel, so everything is working correctly. If I press delete, are you sure? I have a typo in the message. But are you sure that you want to delete your information? If I press cancel, okay, we're gonna keep your information. But if I press information, delete, okay, my Boolean will become true. Your info is deleted, and if I reload the page, now they are deleted. So yes, confirm is a yes no, and prompt is a question. And where's the user for the prompt? The prompt is the typical example is, for example, let's use your IP projects with a graphical user interface mode. Let's call this one an index, act task, and say what is the task name. And if reload, act task, and I get a question. So congratulations! Now you can create your IP project again in JavaScript using a graphical user interface. So let me just remove this example, so we can keep it. And there you go. And next question.
Thank you, Eduardo.
No problem. Somebody, I think it's Sangeeta, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, Eduardo, we have like a document.get element by ID, document.get element by name. What is that name?
Yeah, name is to connect this label to the input. Right now it didn't work. I will check it out later why this is not working. But this one is for connecting this label. Let me close this label to this input. So when you click on the label, it also activates the input. So this is only used for the interface, but to code, you code with using IDs.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the name option, we need to go with the name equal to song.
The name is this tag for this tag. So for the label, remember the intention. I know that it's not working right now, but the intention is that when you click in this is the label tag. When I click on the label, automatically it puts the mouse here. Something like, let me show you in the, I think I did it in the SDA platform. If you click on email, look, if you click on the email, whoop, it clicks the input. If I click on password, boop, it works. In fact, I actually can copy my own code, right click, and I see field set, class field set, label for email, and then input ID, placeholder, autocomplete user ID. No, it's with the ID, sorry. Name. So forget about this one. Forget about this one, my bad. And let me put this one, input some here. Forget about this one, my bad. And the name was I don't remember, the name was a legacy from the old versions of HTML. So forget about that. We're now using IDs only. And this one is input movie. And let me reload the page. And if I click, perfect, now it's working. Yeah, so forget about name. Name is an old legacy from previous versions of HTML. Remember, I know that it's annoying that there is a lingering code from previous versions of HTML, but no, we use the ID, and the for in the label is for this effect. And this is somebody asked at the beginning of the lecture that when you click on a checkbox, sometimes the target is super small. By using this trick and wrap up the label with the input, you can actually make the checkbox, clicking the entire word to click the checkbox as well. So yeah, that's it, the for. So sorry for the name, forget it. And the code will reflect the latest version.
Yeah, one more question as well. Are we using a document.getElement by tag, or is it a legacy method?
No, if you want to get, tomorrow we're gonna do the to-do list example, and in that one we're gonna use the tag. Let's explore what the H1 does. So for example, const example one, example get HTML tag by ID is equal document get element by ID, and this you can pass just one string period. If you get the element by tag, it will get, for example, if you have 10 inputs and you want to get all the inputs at the same time, you can use get element by tag. Element by tag will say, for example, let's say element by tag. Let me create it right now. Const elements document get element by tag name, and we're gonna say, for example, P. This will return an array with all the elements in my web page that has the tag P. And if you do it, and you can do the same with the class by get elements by class name. You can see the difference. This one is singular element T, and this is element TS plural. If this is plural, it will return an array. If this is a singular word, it will return one element. And in an older browser, if you put the same ID twice, it will crash. But right now, it will just keep working, but your code will not work, but the web page will load. And it will drive you crazy, because that's when you miss the compiler. You prefer that the compiler fails here, that the web page just didn't behave correctly in the browser. So yeah, that will be the answer.
Yeah, thank you, Edward.
No problem. I think that somebody else raised the hand, so please go ahead. No, if not, I think that, let me go back to the slides. And yeah, fetch data, I could do it right now, but I would prefer to do it tomorrow so people have some rest, because after that, now it's time for the case study. So because nobody make more questions,